is Evelyn, and I wanted to share with you the miracle birth of Deborah Faith. She's my second daughter. I just made a video about a baby that I recently lost, and I thought, how can I share the story of his death without sharing the stories of my 3 healthy children that all 3 had complications and almost died at birth. So I have to share with you. I just made a video about Esther. Feel free to watch it. And now I'm making a video about my second daughter, Deborah, right here. Deborah. Esther and Deborah are 15 months apart in age. So I basically was taking care of a baby while pregnant. I was a new mom. It was difficult. But I knew that with Esther, I was borderline with preeclampsia. Preeclampsia, if you do not know, it starts off with high blood pressure in pregnancy. It leads to protein in the urine, and it can develop quickly into eclampsia, which is a life-threatening condition both for the pregnant mother and for the baby, and the only cure is childbirth. And even some people continue to have this condition after birth. So it can cause seizures, it can cause death. It's very dangerous. So because I had gestational hypertension and was borderline preeclampsia with my first birth, we were monitoring this with my second child. I was going to a hospital that did VBACs, vaginal birth after cesarean, because I was trying my best to have a vaginal birth. But in the 3rd trimester, my baby was not head down. She was enjoying sitting rear end down in my pelvic bone, and I was just constantly trying to do exercises and different things to get her to flip so I could have a vaginal birth so she could be born head down. But that was not God's will. I was monitoring my blood pressure at home, and one day I started getting really funky numbers. I got a really low number and then followed by a really high number a few minutes later. I called my doctor because I didn't know if there was something wrong with my machine or what was going on with my blood pressure. She said, just to be safe, go into the hospital. I think my machine was messing up, but I did have high blood pressure. I went into the hospital. They did some tests, and they diagnosed me with preeclampsia. The doctors talked to me. They said, look, because you're 37 weeks and 5 days, then in 2 days, when you get to 38 weeks, we are going to either induce you or do a C-section. Another doctor later came in, checked the position of my baby, checked if she could help me to flip her, and said, I'm sorry, ma'am, your baby is sitting rear end down in your pelvic bone, and there's no way we can flip her. She's stuck. And I said, look, doctor, the most important thing is the health of my child. If C-section is best, C-section is best. So I ended up having a planned C-section with her. Now, I had my first daughter under the same conditions. She was born the same size, actually 2 ounces less, but she was born breathing just fine. But I labored for 36 hours with my first daughter. Did the laboring help her lungs, or did the skin-to-skin help her lungs? I don't know. But with my second daughter, Deborah, it was in a different hospital that didn't do skin-to-skin after cesareans. And because it was a scheduled C-section, I did not labor at all. So her lungs had a little bit of trouble breathing. When she was born, my husband held her up for me to see her, and then they told me, ma'am, your daughter's not breathing right, so we're going to take her to NICU. I did not get to see my daughter right away. When I left the operation room, they did wheel me in the bed to see her, but she was in an incubator, sleeping, facing the opposite way. I didn't get to see her face at all. I had someone take a picture so that I could see her face and me in the background. But it was distressing and worrisome having a daughter in ICU because I was not with her. I could not see her. I did not know how she was doing, what was going on. They told me that at 8 hours after giving birth that they would allow me to go see her. So I was counting down the hours, counting down the minutes, and finally when it was time to go, I had a different nurse that told me that I could not go and that she didn't know why they had told me I could. And I began to cry my eyes out because I wanted to see my baby. I wanted to make sure she was okay. I needed to see her. I had an urgency as a mother that I wanted to see my baby. So because I cried, the nurse made an exception. She said, since they made that promise to you, I'll pull some strings and you can go see her for a little bit. So I went and I saw her, and they even let me hold her, and I got to latch her on and give her a little bit of milk. But she had a feeding tube. She was hooked up to breathing machines. And she had an IV. She was just the tiniest little baby. She's like the size of a baby doll, and they've got her hooked up to all these things. It was very distressing to see a little baby like that. And it was my baby. But praise God, the next day, I was visiting her as often as they would let me. They said every 6 hours you can come and visit her and try to latch her on. So I had the schedule set, and even though I had had a C-section, I went first in a wheelchair and then later pushing the wheelchair, and I went and saw her. Well, after 2 days in NICU, they let her come to my room, and a day later she got to come home, and she has had no more health complications since then. Now, Miss Deborah, let me talk about her personality a little bit. She is a Spitfire. She is rough and tough and sweet and cuddly, and she's the most precious little girl ever. She can throw a tantrum like crazy. She's currently 2 and a middle child, so I try to give her that one-on-one attention and show her that she's loved and that she's precious and that she's a very important part of our family. She's just now that she's 2.5, she'll be 3 in January. She was born on January 2nd, so she's practically a New Year's baby. She was born 8 pounds, 13 ounces, 2 ounces more than her sister, yet she had to be in NICU, a little bit different than her sister. They were both born 38 weeks, 0 days. So yeah, Deborah was my miracle baby. She got to come home, and I basically had 2 babies. I had a 15-month-old and I had a newborn. But, she was the most precious little thing. Got a picture right here. She was a tiny little baby, and her sister was just 15 months. And she's a blessing to our lives. And I'm so glad that she survived birth, and so did I.